Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Sharing with Sharon. I am your host, Sharon Harris, and today I am here with my daughter, Herdana Sykes, and she will be talking with me about the book that I wrote entitled Unconditional Love, a Codependent Story.
Okay, so question number one is, what inspired you to write this book?
Okay, what inspired me to write this book was that I was thinking about other people in relationships, and I know that there are a lot of men and women out there just like me that have found themselves in a toxic relationship, or in the past they were in a toxic relationship, and it got to the point where they wanted to get out of the relationship. And as going through that, it's a process. You can't just up and just leave. And sometimes you love the person, the person loves you, you're very much in love, but because of something that they're doing, it's making it toxic and not comfortable for you, and you want to get out.
Okay. What did you learn when writing the book?
What I learned when writing this book is that God was really leading me the whole time. There was a lot of things that I went through in the relationship that I was in, and it taught me how to really love unconditionally, to look past a person's faults and the things that they do that might not be pleasing to you, and to learn how to love them anyway.
Okay. Are you writing a part 2 to this book?
I will be writing something along the lines of relationship. It won't be exactly about my relationship, but it will be something that can help men and women alike to talk about relationships. And a lot of times we get into relationships and we just dive right in, and then once we get in there and it doesn't feel comfortable, then that's when we start asking all the questions. So the next part of this is going to be a book where I'm going to put questions out there for you to ask before you even get far into this relationship, to see if it's a good match for you.
Okay. What was your hardest chapter to write in this book?
Let me see, my hardest chapter to write. I think the hardest chapter for me to write was the one where I had to just be transparent about the fact that I was in love with a crack addict. Nobody wants to tell the world that they were actually in love with a crack addict. You may say, well, I was in a relationship with somebody and it didn't work out. But when it comes to really just putting it all out there and saying he was on crack and this is what happened, that was like the hardest part to write.
Okay. How long did it take you to write this book?
Well, I believe that the Lord really started speaking to me about writing this book in 2017, and it wasn't really until 2018 that I really started to take it seriously and start putting pen to paper and writing little notes. And then it finally came out this year in March of 2021.
Okay. What advice would you give to other writers?
I would just say to anyone that's writing, if you have a thought or you have an idea that you think is going to help someone else, to just go for it. Put that pen to paper and then just get to writing, and you'll be surprised how more thoughts will come out as you begin to sit down and write. So just go for it.
Okay, so tell us just a little bit about the book.
Well, in the beginning of the book, I write a little bit about my life growing up in Detroit, Michigan. Going through grade school, middle school, high school, and different encounters that I had. And then I get into dating, as a young adult, and, talk about, some different relationships that I was in, and how those turned out, what I went through in those relationships. Because sometimes we go through a lot of things, we think this is going to be the perfect relationship, and then it doesn't turn out that way. And so I talk about a little bit about what happened in those particular relationships, and then I dive into the relationship, the whole reason that I wrote the book, and that was the relationship that I had with my son's father. And when I met him, we were teenagers. We began to date, and we fell head over heels for one another right off the bat very soon. You know, he introduced me to his family. I introduced him to my family. And then, you know, as a little time went on, then that's when I discovered that he was, in fact, on crack cocaine. But by the time I discovered that, it was one of those things where I just was so in love with him, didn't want to leave, and that took me on a journey of 20 years of dealing with him in and out of addiction. And I talk about some of the things that we went through with him being in the addiction. And then when it got to the point where I knew, okay, enough is way beyond enough. This is when it just got to the point where it was like, I just cannot do this anymore. And there were times in our relationship where it was off again, on again, because of his addiction. And you know, I would push him away, and I would try to, you know, get myself together and regroup, but then it was always some kind of way we would get back together. So I knew it was a toxic relationship, and I knew I had to get out of it. And there was one point, you know, at the end of those 20 years of going back and forth, where I actually sat down with some counselors at a drug rehab facility, and they had been addicted to crack themselves and had been clean for a number of years. And so they gave me some advice in dealing with him. And so when they gave me that advice, it was just like, this is it. I know what I need to do now to get myself free from this relationship. And so that's what the basis of it was, and that's why I entitled it Unconditional Love, a codependent story, because I was truly a codependent. And I talk about, even in the book, how I somehow felt that it was my responsibility to help him get clean and stay clean, when it really wasn't my responsibility at all. So that was the basis of it.